Golden Age of Gaia menu home contact US commentary news library / archives hope chest forums / home / abundance on building Nova Earth / Nesra or the Abundance Program / what is Nesra? What is Nesra? Print friendly, PDF and email Saint Germain. Since Nesra has been mentioned several times recently, please allow me to give a short summary of what Nesra comprises. The acronym Nesra stands for National Economic Security and Reformation Act. The act was passed by the American Congress in the year 2000 and never proclaimed, for reasons we will touch upon shortly. As a program, Nesra can be viewed from several perspectives. As a spiritually directed financial program, it traces back to the work of Saint Germain and 3 other ascended masters. That work began in the 15th century and was designed to provide a new economic system for the world during the present time of transition. Shuldan Niddle's Spiritual Hierarchy and Galactic Federation describe the Master's work and its development over the centuries. I cite that passage at length. This time will be heralded by an infusion of great abundance. This prosperity will be due largely to the endurance of our earthly allies and the brilliant strategies set in motion, many centuries ago, by the ascended masters Count Saint Germain, Master Hilarion, Seraphis Bey, and Saint Paul the Venetian. These holy beings were able to bring to this realm a financial and monetary plan whose secret purpose is to enable great abundance to rain down at the appropriate time. Although Saint Germain is ultimately responsible for its success, each of the ascended masters we have mentioned has played a significant role in its present-day preparation. Briefly, the Ottoman Turks, the Habsburgs of Austria, the Bourbons of France and the Holy See conspired in the past to create a system of banking and trust that has lasted until this day. The origins of their created fractional banking system are revealed in the ancient treasuries of Rome, Persia, India, and China, and in the many empires of the New World. By Europe's Middle Ages, control of this system had passed to the Pope and a series of allied monarchs. This group was grievously threatened by the rise of the Ottomans in the Middle East, and by their capture of Constantinople. New arrangements were needed. Saint Paul the Venetian and Seraphis Bey were leaders in negotiating the new secret treaties, but only to prepare the way for the final phase of their strategy. Saint Germain carried this out beautifully, with help from the Master Hilarion. The outcome was a world trust for this realm's light workers. Funds were to be dispersed with the advent of Christendom's second millennium. As that time approached, however, it became increasingly clear that the cabals who control your world wished to avoid this payout. Therefore, a number of former members who left these groups and secretly supported Count Saint Germain's original intention, devised a way to defeat the secret manipulations of their former dark cabals. This resulted in the rise of our earthly allies and an exceedingly complex strategy that took decades to bring to fruition. The process began as a way to ensure that the abundance promised by Count Saint Germain was actually made available to Earth's light workers. At first, this amounted to a number of trusts whose true purpose was kept secret. A few decades later, it concerned the bringing to light of a humanitarian project approved by the IMF. Over time, this led to the emergence of a number of governmental, economic, and political coalitions, which were protected by the Ascended Masters. They also encouraged divine intervention by the Galactic Federation of Light. This first contact mission would be allied, eventually, with those who so courageously had encouraged the disclosure of Count Saint Germain's World Trust. In 1998, this measure was officially carried into effect by a series of secret agreements promising that the UFO cover-up would cease when these funds were dispersed. The outcome of almost a decade of secret conflict waged between this global coalition and Earth's many dark cabals culminated in the latter part of 2000. The remaining dark cabal realized that it was imperative for them to seize the leadership of Earth's last superpower. Thus, they developed a policy that resembled a scheme they had employed in Germany during the 1930s, i.e., 9/11, designed to imitate the consequences of the Reichstag fire. They hoped that this policy would enable them to block the disbursement of funds. They also hungered to engage in a perpetual war that would allow them to complete the dismantling of this superpower's Bill of Rights. At first, their policy seemed to succeed. However, their spitefulness resulted in a violent reaction that increased our earthly allies' ability to counterbalance the power amassed by these last cabals. Now, this coalition has used your planet's most recent, illegal war in Iraq as the intolerable, final act that will break this last cabal's hold on the reins of power. 1. Viewed as a modern development, The roots of Nesra can be found in the response by the Supreme Court to banking foreclosures against farm property which the court found to be illegal. In the course of reviewing these practices, the court went further and ruled that many other contemporary banking, taxation, and governance arrangements were unconstitutional. For that, James Rink's article appears to be a good source. 2. As a legislative initiative, it took its name from the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, passed by Congress in 2000, as implied in Matthew Ward's comments. The Nesra legislation is being processed within the laws of the God-inspired original U.S. Constitution. 3. Because the United States determines to such a large extent what happens in your world, Nesra was devised in accordance with U.S. laws rather than any other countries. 4. Nesra was due to be announced on September 11, 2001 at 10 a.m., but the cabal blew up the World Trade Center buildings at 9 a.m. to prevent it, as Matthew briefly alludes to. The dark forces are fighting tooth and nail to prevent even the awareness of Nesra, much less its implementation, and, at this point, delaying the announcement that must by law precede enactment of the widespread provisions is the only weapon left to them. They have been successful thus far in achieving delays by many means: assassinations of influential people who favor initiating the provisions without delay, as well as others actively working toward this end, death threats to the families of light workers and to the workers themselves, double agents within the ranks of the light workers, and terrorist assaults. The U.S. Internal Terrorist Act of September 11, 2001, was the most dramatic of these tactics. 5. The gold which backed the new currency was stored in the WTC towers and stolen by the cabal. Building 7 was the center of operations for 9/11 and was destroyed after the operation was complete. Viewed from the widest possible angle, Nesra is a spiritually inspired and guided arrangement, as Matthew indicates. Nesra is legislation of the United States government that was designed by highlight beings in conjunction with spiritual beings on the planet as the legal means to usher in the era of peace, love, and harmony on Earth. 6. Some consider Nesra to be political and economic in nature, while others view it as spiritual because of the high-level light beings affiliated with it. Nesra is both. When people are severely oppressed by political and economic conditions that foster impoverished living circumstances, lack of health care and education, monopoly of natural resources, slave labor, unjust laws and courts, starvation, and tyrannical regimes, offering soul food isn't enough. When people are preoccupied with mere survival requirements, giving them only spiritual messages is not going to bring about the global reforms they need to rise out of their misery. That is why the provisions of Nesra are monumental in scope, embodying sweeping reforms for Earth that will begin as soon as the legislation is officially announced. When people become aware of the reforms, they will be motivated to participate according to their capabilities. As in all other aspects of polarity still existing on Earth, Nesra is at one extreme and the dark forces that the members themselves call the Illuminati are at the other. 7. Nesra is designed to erase poverty and all its attendant ills from Earth during a transitional period preceding ascension so that the planet's sovereign citizens can focus